Welcome to Foam Roll and Stretch. So thank you for coming, and I just want to give you the lay of the land as we get started here for those of you that may have not taken this class before. So this class is all about, obviously, self-myofascial release and flexibility training. So we're going to be focusing on a request that I got for doing a little bit more focus on the IT band. So the lay of the land as we get into this class, the props that you're going to need is a foam roller of any kind. I have my small one here, but if you have one of the longer ones, that works as well. Just anything, any density is totally fine. If you have one of the ones with little spiky ones, the little rollers that have like a little bit more like grooves and all that stuff, just know that those ones can be a little bit more painful, so just kind of ease your way through it and listen to your body. If you happen to have, this is an optional add-on, 2 tennis balls or 2 lacrosse balls, 2 pinky balls, whatever, those will be very, very handy for some of the modifications if you need to either go lighter or a little bit less intense, or if you want to go a little bit more deep. These are really, really great tools to have. I'll be kind of showing you a couple of things that you can do with these, but they're a really, really good investment. They're not very expensive, and they're the perfect density. Tennis balls are the perfect density for most of the stuff that we do, so it's a good thing to have. If you don't have them, don't worry about it, but otherwise I will be kind of referring to those a couple of times. So to kick things off, we're just going to do some stuff to open up the joints and make sure that we're kind of relaxing, so that we can get into the deeper stuff. We're going to be focusing, as I said, on the IT band for a large portion of the class today, and this is going to be done in a group. I usually do my foam rolls in a group of exercises or muscles that kind of work together in conjunction for one similar effect. Now, the way that we do it is we're going to do 3 exercises within that group, so we're going to target 3 different muscles, 1, 2, and then 3. As you go through it, I'd like for you to focus on which one of those felt like it needed the most attention. Maybe it was the one that felt a little bit the most tight, or maybe something that just hurt so good in that way that you're like, I feel like I need to do more, and pay attention to that. So we're going to do exercise 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to encore one of those 3. And that might differ from your right side to your left side. So you'll do exercises 1, 2, and 3, and then you'll want to encore one thing on one side and then go 1, 2, 3 on the other side. It might be a totally different area that you want to encore. And that in this class is absolutely okay, because everybody's body is going to be mapped out a little bit differently. Everybody holds tension in different ways. So this is a class where we listen to the body, not one where we say, okay, now do this, then this, then this, and it's more of a command situation. So kind of keep that in mind as we get through this. So go ahead and grab your foam roller. We're going to get started right away with some hip openers. And this is probably one of my favorite ones, just because it does facilitate release in a way that you can use gravity to work with you. So we're going to start off laying down on the floor. Go ahead and take your foam roller and then place it right underneath your hip bones, kind of close to the belt line. And what this should do is start to kind of just let you just relax nice and lazy on top of the roller. Your feet are firmly planted on the ground, and you just kind of like let the knees drop from side to side as you just kind of let gravity do its work. You'll feel your low back moving around a little bit. That's fine. And just kind of take note of any messages coming from your body. Maybe one hip has a little bit of a harder time releasing. Maybe your back starts to feel a little twingy as it goes through this little bit of a rotation. Just kind of pay attention to those messages. But more than anything right now, we're trying to relax. Try to sense the ball and the socket joint of your hip, and can you feel it just glide around nice and easy, as if the bones were taking your legs from side to side, not the muscles. Try to breathe a couple of deep, relaxing breaths before we do anything at all. And then when you feel like you're ready, go ahead and hike your knees up into a small ball position. You should be able to find a comfortable way to hold onto your knees and let gravity just kind of let the knees fall towards the face. What we're going to do here is we're going to extend one leg nice and long into a hip flexor stretch. So you're bracing with one knee, and the other one is stretching long, 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 far away. We're trying to open up the hip flexor using gravity. So I almost have this sensation where somebody's pulling my leg out and creating space through the front of the hip. The thigh bone is dropping down with gravity. Give yourself a deep breath as you exhale. Feel that front hip flexor on that extended leg get a little bit more length. And then from here, go ahead and pull the leg in and switch sides. So bracing with one knee to kind of keep the pelvis in place and just kind of feel the hip flexor drop and open up. Feeling length pulling out from the belly button through the thigh bone. And just kind of enjoy this passive stretch for just a second. We're going to do what I call knee circles. We're going to keep the hips on the foam roller. When you feel like you're ready, go and pull the knees in. Then from here, grab both shins at the knee and just start to draw some circles. The knees open and then back out. So you get a little bit of an inner thigh stretch. Again, this is all very, very passive. You should feel everything just relaxing as you do this. Continue to breathe. All right, then from here, I want to take one knee, whichever one, go ahead and brace it just like you did before, and let the other knee just travel down just until the toe hits the floor, and then draw that circle back and around and up towards the face, and then try the other side. So circle all the way around, trying to let the knee drop with gravity the whole way. Right and left one more time. The magic moment really is when the knee is all the way out to the side and you feel gravity just take it down so that you feel that inner thigh stretch, and then try the other side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try and do both of these simultaneously. You're going to feel your muscles deep in the hip really want to control this and manage this. So we're going to drop one knee, and then as the other one comes up, the other one is going to go down. So you have this moment of middle stretch right in the middle. Arms can go down by your side if you feel like the hips are releasing successfully, and you're just feeling the hips and the ball in the socket release. And if you want to, what you can do is, if you've got the flexibility, you can actually try extending the legs. This will give a little bit more weight to the work that you're doing. Just continue to breathe. All the way through. About 2 more times. And then from here, go ahead and rest. From here, go ahead and press the feet into the floor, lift the hips up, and drop the hips down to the floor. What I'd like for you to do now is cross one leg over, and then pull it in towards the face for a nice figure 4 stretch. So pretty basic. You can have your hands clasped behind the thigh or behind the shin. Both are okay. And then from here, just kind of flatten the back into the floor as you breathe. Another deep breath. And start to release. Go ahead and take it to the other side. Nice and easy, just trying to open up the hips. Give yourself a moment to breathe, and remember that this stretch, once you've braced your hands in this position, it really is just about flattening the low back and really trying to connect to the ground a little bit more. And let the breath help you find that gravity just a little bit more to make this a really truly passive stretch. And then once you're ready, go ahead and release the leg and then bring it all the way down again. We're going to flip it over. We're going to go and find a passive child's pose position. So with this one, I like to use the roller because it not only provides an elevation tool so that I can drop my chest further, but it also allows me to really reach as we go into it. So the hands go on top of the roller. Go ahead and take your knees about a little bit wider than shoulder width apart for this one. We want to go wide. And then from here, just start to roll the roller down and away from you as you drop your chest down and widen out the back. So feel your shoulder blades broadening out. And let the main part of this stretch be the dropping of the chest and the pulling back of your hips. About one more deep breath here. And then start to roll up using the roller to come all the way back up. So if that was enough for you, you can stay there. If you'd like to, we can add a little bit more by adding an inner thigh element. So what we do with this one is go ahead and take one leg out to the side. Now this is not going to be for everybody, but this is an addition to the child's pose. We're going to start by sitting back, leaving that leg nice and lengthened, and then go ahead and take that same roll out position. You may not be able to go down as far, but remember, it's about the dropping of the chest and the broadening of the shoulders to create this stretch. Give yourself about 1 or 2 breaths here. And then bring it in. We're going to go to the other side. Other side. So start by lengthening the leg, and then start to roll the hips back as the rolling of the roller goes forward. And just breathe. One or 2 breaths at the end of that second one. Go ahead and press into the roller, roll it underneath you as you come up for support, and then come on back out. So we're going to get right into our first group, the first group of 3 muscles that kind of correlate. So these are going to be leading into your IT band, which is a pretty rough spot for a lot of people. So be cognizant of as we go through this. You're listening for the muscle of these 3 that feels like it needs the most attention. We're going to flip back onto our back. Place the roller exactly like we had it in the beginning of the class, right underneath the belt line. Then from here, we're going to lift the legs just like before, but this time we're going to take the knees and tip them both to one side. So you're kind of twisting and dropping almost to where you feel the roller hit the side of your hip, and then come on back up. Really giving pressure to that top rim of your pelvis. So if this is not feeling like much, the position of your roller should be right underneath your iliac crest. Now what is that? That's the top of your pelvis. So if you need to, you can position it a little bit lower. You're probably going to find more tender spots the lower down you go, and the more onto the side of the hip that you let the hips fall. So the iliac crest is, you have your pelvis, which is basically like 2 butterfly wings, right? That kind of go all the way up and over. And right at the top of that iliac crest, you have the insertion points for all of those gluteal muscles. And we're tracing that insertion point, or those insertion points at the top of the iliac crest, only on one side. So remember, you're only going to get one side of the hip at this point, because we're only going to work on one leg at a time. So breathing, and what I'd like for you to do at this point is find the part that feels maybe the most tender. Wherever you feel like, ooh, yeah, hurts so good, right? If it feels like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being excruciating, I'd like for you to ease up. There's a couple of different ways to do it. Maybe don't go as far, just try and get as many of those insertion points as possible, so maybe your lean isn't quite all the way over to the side. Just go to where you can tolerate it and relax and breathe. The other way is using your tennis ball. So with the hips on the floor, you place the ball right where that pressure point is, and you've got most of your weight on the ground. And then from here, you can choose to drop the knees just enough to where you feel like you're on that spot. Okay, so this is a regression opportunity with the tennis balls. It goes a little bit more deeply because it's one solid point rather than more of a blunt surface like you have on the foam roller. But because most of your body weight is connected to the floor, you're not putting your full pressure onto that one point. And that's what makes this a regression, because it's much more controllable. So again, really good tool to have. Go ahead and ease up out of that one. We're going to move on to the next one. The next one is a little harder to find. So remember how that one felt, and remember and ask yourself if that's an area that you want to come back to as we compare it to this next one. Now on the same leg, I just got my left hip, so I'm going to try and stay on the left leg for the next couple of things. This next one we're going for is your TFL. So your TFL is on the front of the hip, but not directly front. What I'd like for you to do is go ahead and grab your hips and feel around for the bony areas. Right here, there is what some people call it the swimsuit model hip bone. This is the front of your pelvis. This is where that butterfly wing wraps around and creates a little bit of a point, okay? Go ahead and place one finger there. The other one is down here by the side. This is the upper leg bone. So you have your thigh bone, and then right up at the top, there's a little nub, right? The greater trochanter, if you want to look it up, the greater trochanter of the femur. it's that bony process right on the side of your hip. Now go and place your finger there. Now what I want you to do is trace a halfway point between that line. So the line between those 2 points, go halfway there. You should find a point that is not really on the front of the hip, not on the side of the hip, but about halfway on a 45-degree angle. You're going to try and lay down on the roller right on that point. So it should also be right where, if you pull your knee up, that's right where the fold happens, right? That's your TFL muscle, your tensor fasciae lata. And what you want to do is lay right on top of it and give as much pressure as you can. So once you've got it, you've got two different options that you can use to use movement on this. You can either rock the hips up and down, or you can rock the hips from the knee to the hip, like kind of more top to bottom. So either rotating the hips or up and down. And it shouldn't be very, you shouldn't have to travel too much for this one. And you're just staying in the crease of the hip. So with this one, it's kind of a funny one. The personality of this muscle is that initially when you first start to get in, go ahead and stay there and work out what you need to, and just continue to breathe. Initially, it's not going to feel like much. Initially, typically, for most people, it just feels like, oh, am I getting it? I'm not really sure. But the more that you relax into it, you start to really feel that foam roller work its way deep. The muscle starts to release a little more, allowing the foam roller to go a little bit deeper, right? So it's a very emotional muscular area, your hip flexors. So initially, they're just so used to holding on to pressure and tightness that when they feel the first initial signal of pressure, they're just going to contract naturally because that's what they do. But as you relax, you'll start to feel that open up, and you'll feel how much tension there is there. So this is a very neglected area for a lot of people. We think hip flexors, we go straight for the psoas, but this one is one of your main hip stabilizers. And what's more so important about it is that you have your glute medius, which we just did, the upper rim of the pelvis on this side, and your TFL. They both diagonally cross and connect to your IT band, which is this long piece of fascia that connects your whole leg together. And it's a piece of fascia that's strong enough to pull a truck. So a lot of people runners, cyclists, a lot of athletes have problems with their IT band being super tight, which is where we're going to go next. And they roll it out, and they don't get anywhere with it. And the reason is because this is not where the problem is. This is tight because it's being pulled by these guys up here, which we don't really pay very much attention to. So this is why this is the group that we're doing. We want to go to the source of the problem first, find out where the problem lies. If you tend to sit into your hip a lot, if you've got a kid that you hold on your on one side, right? Mothers usually have a problem with their glute medius. Or it can refer tension into your TFL. If that doesn't get released, it's going to continue to pull on the IT band, doesn't matter how many times you roll it out. So getting it kind of like from a more holistic stance, which is what we're trying to do here, you might be able to facilitate a deeper release. Now go ahead and come out of the TFL roll that we just did. Now we're going to go for the big guy, the IT band. So with this one, we're going to stay on the same leg, and we want to go on our side, starting up right at the hip bone, that bone that we identified, not the swimsuit model one, but the one on the side of the leg. And go ahead and find yourself lying right on your side. First things first, go ahead and check your positioning of your hips. You should have one hip bone directly above the other one, right? So you have a perpendicular angle to the floor or the foam roller. From here, you're going to go 1 inch per second from the top of the thigh all the way down the side of the leg. Trying your best to breathe because this can be very intense. There are two techniques, if this is the first time that you're doing it, there are two techniques that you can use to make sure that you don't go too far, too hard, too quickly. The first of them is you want to go about 1 inch per second down the thigh just until you feel like, okay, this is where it starts to get unbearable. And you breathe and you try your best to relax the leg, especially the quadricep in the front, which loves to grip. So you want to relax the leg as much as possible and just stay there and breathe. The other option that you can do is you can just find wherever is tolerable on a scale of 1 to 10, looking for like a 7 in pain, right? And you're looking for that place that is challenging but doable, where you can still focus on relaxing your muscles and just kind of wiggle it out very, very gently, very, very slowly, about 1 inch right on that spot, okay? So the main thing is that you don't want to go, if you go further down to the knee, you're going to find it gets a little bit more intense. Most people experience that. But no matter what, you want to find that place where it's like, okay, it's challenging, but I'm still able to release the muscle, meaning the quadricep. So the muscle in the front, since the IT band is not a muscle itself, the quadricep will tense up against it and try and push you off of the roller a little bit. So you want to make sure that leg stays as relaxed as possible as you stay there and breathe and try and let the roller work its magic a little bit deeper, okay? If you tense the muscle as you're rolling it out, it's kind of like you're on a massage table and you tense up when they hit that one spot that kind of hurts a little bit. What does the massage therapist usually tell you to do? Just relax, because we need to get in there. Otherwise, if you keep on rolling on a very tense muscle, then you can actually add neuromuscular tension. You're teaching your body that you're going to brutalize it, and it's going to resist, right? So go ahead and try and relax as much as possible, and don't feel like you need to change the world in this one foam roll experience. Remember, it's about consistency in foam rolling. It's not so much about just going in there and rolling it out like it's a piece of dough, right? Go ahead and rest. Come out of that position, nice and easy. Right? And then before we go into our encore, I want you to ask yourself, of those three, which one spoke to you the most? And just use your intuition. Which one seems right? We had the TFL on the front. We had the glute medius, where we were laying down on our backs and rolling over on the side of the hip, or we had the IT band, okay? Choose between those three. I'm going to give you 1 solid minute to roll still on the same leg, that same area. So go ahead and get yourself into the position that you choose. I will show you again which ones those were, in case you need the reference. We had the pelvic rim, glute medius, tipping over towards the side. That was one. The second one was your TFL. That was the one where you're going kind of on the 45-degree angle of the hip, and you're either rotating the hip up and down or wiggling it out about 1 inch right into the crease of that hip flexor. And then you had your IT band, starting from the hip, and then working your way down and either staying at the place that you can tolerate or just kind of working it out and breathing. So if you're not already there, go ahead and get to the one that you choose. A minute starts right now. Just as you're doing this, start to really feel, why are you there? What was it that called you to encore this particular exercise? Was it because it felt very good, like your muscle wanted to release? Or was it because it felt very, very challenging and you feel like it needs more work, okay? Both of those are correct. Or maybe you're going there because you know your body very well and you know that this is an area that, is problematic for you. All of those reasons are good. None of them are bad. But do pay attention to some of those reasonings, right? And again, I can't stress enough, make sure that on a scale of 1 to 10, don't go to your 10. Right? This is not a piece of dough that you're rolling out and you're beating it into submission. In certain strength classes and cardio classes, we do want to, push ourselves, and it's more that part of the conversation where you're telling the body what to do. Here, you're listening. This one is more about being consistent about it, coming back to it, because it's not going to go away after just one session. It's about coming back to it and making a practice of it and really learning to listen and re-listen to your body, because it'll change. Maybe next week you try and do the same thing. It might be a different story. Your body is an ever-changing vessel, and it's our job to listen to it as we go along our way. And that's been about a minute. Let's go ahead and move on to the other leg. We're going to get the other side of the leg, same exact exercises, starting with the pelvic rim on the opposite leg. So start by placing the foam roller where you want it, lift both knees up, and then let the knees start to tip over to one side. And just breathe, 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 breathe. First couple of passes, you're going to start to feel the muscles react. Think of, I love to use this analogy because I'm a little bit of a nerd and I love using analogies. But when I'm doing my cardiovascular or my strength training classes, I love to kind of tell the muscles, okay, I want you to do this. And the muscles respond as far as a personality. They respond kind of like, if you're a pet owner, you'll understand, like a dog. A dog is always ready for it. It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? We're doing that now? Okay. And if you do something wrong, the dog is like, oh, no, it's fine. Just keep going. It's totally fine, right? It's a different attitude. With flexibility training, your muscles respond a little bit more like cats. Cats are, I don't want to say distrusting. They're sensitive. They're very, very fine on their own, really. But if something goes wrong with a cat, it's never their fault. You can't scold a cat. If you scold a dog, the dog will feel bad and feel like, oh, what did I do wrong? But with a cat, they see you scolding them and they're like, wow, you're a jerk. I'm going to avoid you, right? It's the same thing with your musculature. If you push too hard, if you go too deep, if you don't go slow enough, the muscle starts to learn, like, oh, okay, this is that part where it goes too deep, and so I'm going to tense. And then it starts to develop a pattern of resisting you, allowing you to relax, allowing you to get a little bit deeper. And then come on out of it. Let's go and move on to the TFL. So if you'll pardon my weird pet analogies for your muscles, this is the best way that I have of explaining it. So your approach has to be a little bit differently when you're working with muscular challenges. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the TFL. If you want to mark it, again, it was find your swimsuit hip bone, swimsuit model hip bone, and then the greater trochanter of the leg. So those two hard surfaces on your hip, you go halfway between, and then you lay that sucker right on the foam roller. And then again, approach it like a cat, feline, right? Okay, so we're going to go here. This is what we're doing. And then just, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Relax. You're fine, right? It's that kind of an approach. And just listen to it. You know, if it's got something to say, hang out. Like mine is gripping a lot on this side versus the other side. Another thing about cats, sorry, I'm still doing that. Another thing about cats is you can't really treat two of them exactly the same, can you? They're very, very independent. They're very, very unique. They all have their own personalities and their own approaches to figuring things out. It's the same thing with your muscles. Your TFL on one side may be a different story on your TFL on the other side. And this is why I said in the beginning, it's okay if you feel like you need to work on, when you encore the exercises, to encore on one side, but then encore something totally different on the other. In a strength training class, we wouldn't do that. You want to, if you're doing bicep curls 12 times on the right side, you want to do 12 on the left side because we aim for symmetry in strength training. In flexibility, we're trying to remedy imbalances. So if there's a tight area on one side, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be tight on the other. So what we're doing is we're trying to remedy where the body needs the attention. So if your TFL is screaming bloody murder on one side and not on the other, please give attention to the one that needs it, because it might be a different story on the other side. About another 3 more breaths as we work through this TFL situation. And then when you feel like you're ready, start to ease off of it. And then start to get yourself emotionally prepared for the IT band. The IT band is usually the nasty one. So for this one, remember the cues for this one. This one was, you start at the top of the hip, you make sure the bottom leg is as relaxed as possible, and then you have your 2 techniques. You roll out 1 inch per second, not too fast, and really feel what's going on, and start to feel the peripheral muscles, your quadriceps especially. Do they start to tense up? And if they do, stay there until you can relax. And if you can, go further. If not, don't worry about it. You can get all the way down to the knee. I wouldn't cross over the knee. You don't want to roll over a joint, a major joint. Find the spot that you're going to commit to and just breathe into it. Another bad habit that people have in the IT band rolling is, and especially if you're not feeling anything, sometimes people's hips will drop back, right? So if your hip bone, we should have one hip bone right on top of the other. If one of them drops back, you're going to be putting more pressure on your hamstring, which is usually a little bit more comfortable, right? So we kind of like, oh yeah, this is no problem at all. Try getting the hip bone right back up so that you're perpendicular to the floor, and you might feel the sensation change. We're going to stay here and breathe. So a couple of things to think about. If you're feeling like your IT band on one side or your TFL on one side is different from the other, it's more information for you to really consider, because imbalances like that, if you hold pressure, an excessive amount of pressure on one side and not on the other, that can be a precursor for injury. If it hasn't already manifested, it can definitely work its way into other areas of the body. For example, go ahead and keep on going. But for example, if I'm a mother of a small child, and I love to, and you always hold your baby on one side. We always have that favorite side. And you're always sitting into that hip to prop them up, right? So maybe your TFL on this side, or maybe your glute medius is really just, getting so much pressure all the time. And then this side, there's not enough. What ends up happening is as we're walking, when you put the child down and you start walking and you've got all this bound up pressure and tension in one side, or developed strength in one side that doesn't exist on the other, it'll change your gait. It'll change the way that your body balances or holds itself in space. And then those injuries can start to work peripherally into other areas of the body. More specifically to that situation would be your low back. Your low back is going to start to feel like it's got all this tension on one side and not enough on the other. And then all of a sudden you've maybe dislodged something, or maybe that excessive amount of pressure will just start to build up, and then another muscle in your back wants to kind of compensate, and then it seizes up, and then you've got back pain. Typically, injuries radiate and travel up the body, generally, from those kinds of imbalances, but this is one of the ways that you can remedy that. Go ahead and come out of your IT band stretch at this point, or your IT band roll, and then ask yourself, right side, or whatever side you're on, which of those three are you going to encore? Then we're going to finish with that, do a little bit of stretching, and then call it a day. So let's go and spend that 1 minute on whichever of those three you are going to encore again. For me, I think it's going to be the TFL on this side. So let's go ahead and do it. 1 minute solid. Go ahead and hit that one of those three in the group that you're committing to, and let's go ahead and start and breathe. So we're getting it a second time on this leg. And just kind of taking a mental note. If you're imbalanced, if one side is more tight than the other, ask yourself why. What kind of things might be contributing to that? Do you feel tension in areas around that area, like your low back, for example? For this particular group, your low back, your knees would be another one. Because the iliotibial band, the IT band, is a piece of fascia, like I said, that's strong enough to pull a truck, but it's the iliotibial, so that means it goes from your iliac crest at the top of your hip all the way down to your tibial, your lower leg bone, right, your shin bone. So if it's tight, it's crossing over both your hip joint and your knee joint. So that compression can cause a lot of damage. So we're at that minute for that encore exercise. Go ahead and ease up, come on out of it. And then from here, we're just going to go into a nice little easy hip opening stretch. So this class is one of those ones where it's investigative, and hopefully you walk away with a little bit more knowledge about how your body's doing at that time. From here, go and take your hands on your shins. Now, this is not the butterfly stretch where your heels are up by your crotch. You actually want to have a little bit of openness for this one. And just start to rock from side to side, releasing the muscles deep in the hip socket. We're going to do a little stretch. From here, even out the distribution of weight from one butt cheek to the other, so you're nice and symmetrical, and then just press the chest forward and roll the shoulders back. Give yourself a deep breath here. And then release, curve to wherever feels good to you, and then find that halfway point between the two. Go ahead and take the arm over to the side, releasing the low back. Deep breath in, and as you exhale, lengthen to come back up. One more time on the other side. Find your side stretch. Breathe into it. And then one more inhale. Exhale reaches you up. From here, reach across the diagonal. So I'm going to drop my head as I reach across one shin bone, still trying to keep both sides of the butt on the floor. This is a low back stretch. So you're going to feel it in your inner thighs and your hips, but you do want to feel that reach across, working through your low back. Deep breath in. And exhale to come up. Go ahead and take it to the other side. Reach across the diagonal. Being aware that this particular stretch does kind of tempt people to kind of lean and rock on the hips. You want to have both sides of the hips on the ground so you get that deep stretch in the low back. And of course, drop the head. Maybe if you want to shake the head, no, that's a good idea for the neck muscles. Deep breath in, and exhale, come back to vertical. We're going to go for an inner thigh stretch to close things out. Go ahead and find a nice, comfortable wide leg position. Now, you got two choices for this one. If this is a hard position for you and you feel your back tightening up a lot, you can take your roller and you can sit on that sucker. It might ease it up for you, okay? Otherwise, if you've got your roller handy, this can be a really good way to stretch forward. Hands are going to go on the roller just like we did in the child's pose position, and just slowly roll while you maintain a little bit of support with your arms and reach forward. Find a stretch as deep as you're willing to go. If this is too much for you, the rolling forward, what you can do is take your hands behind you and just try and lift the chest. That's another great option. We'll take 3 solid breaths here. And then at the end of the third one, start to ease out of the stretch. And you can come into a cross-legged position and just take a moment and try to release any muscles that still might be tensing. They may be all the way up to your neck, whatever that is for you, your shoulders, anything like that. And just take a mental note. So like I said, this is an investigative class, so hopefully you walk away with a little bit more like information than when you walked into the class initially. So it's a really good idea, and I encourage my students all the time when they take this class, take a mental note. Some people actually need to write it down so that it computes. What did you discover? What were the tight areas? How did they feel? And then make that your homework. Try to identify 1 or 2 things. I mean, I know we didn't do this a lot here because this is a mini class. But try to walk away with 1 or 2 things that you can develop into a practice for the rest of this week. So if it was the TFL on this side and the glute medius on this side, write those suckers down. And then maybe during commercial breaks when you're watching television, just pull out the roller and just do those 2 exercises. Paying attention to those details will be a really, really great asset for you in both injury prevention and body maintenance and performance as well. So if you can make a practice of it, because remember, the world's problems can't be solved in one simple class. It's about consistency, because as soon as you finish releasing the TFL in a class like this, you might go around out your day, go ahead and pick up your child or whatever bad habit or whatever habit, tension-creating habit you might have that caused the situation, and then it goes right back to where it was. But if you come back to it a couple of times just within that 1 week, you will start to see your body change, both in the way that it operates and in the way that you feel overall. But it's about maintenance. So let this be the inventory in this class that carries you through the week. And each week we can come back and find more and more hot spots and hopefully find body equilibrium along the way. So that's the premise of this class, and I hope you had a good time. Thank you for being here, and I will see you hopefully soon again. Thanks.
Hey, did you enjoy class? I hope so. So if you're interested in taking more classes with me, there's tons of ways to sign up. So to get yourself into class, all you gotta do is decide if you want to do a membership or if you want to do class by class. If you want to go class by class, you just buy a 5 class pass, 10 class pass, 20 class pass, however you want, or you can opt to be a member. There are 2 types of membership. You can either be a full access member where you get access to everything, all the classes on demand anytime, plus the full video library of constantly updated classes. I record every class I do every week, and you'll have access to take those classes anytime you want. We also have the video only membership, which gives you the option to have access to that full library without going to the full throttle membership. Now that's for people who might have more unpredictable schedules, or maybe the class times don't work for you. That option is available to you as well. Plus, with membership, you also get access to full discounts. You get access to a lot of giveaways, tons of options with memberships. And you can choose from a huge variety of class types, from flexibility training classes like flowing flexibility, foam roll, all the way to strength conditioning, bar classes, ballotone classes, or some of the high intensity interval training like HIIT, Tabata. All that stuff is available to you. And just by having an active pass of any kind, either a membership or a class pass, you have access to an updated library of classes the whole time, whenever you want. And just by participating, you get to be a part of the rewards program, which is points that go directly towards dollars, which you can put towards free fitness gear, free classes, special events, membership payments, all kinds of stuff. So points equals dollars. You get points just simply by taking class, by being there, by showing up, by helping share on social media the things that you did with Ken Scott Fitness. Tons of ways to get points, tons of ways to spend them. Super, super fun, and it's super engaging as well. So I hope you like what you saw, and if you ever have any questions, you can reach out to me at ken@kenscottfitness.com. I'd love to hear from you, and hopefully I'll see you in class.